Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the second in our series of webinars hosted by Amplifi. Amplifi is a business community focused on sustainability and net zero and established in Tunbridge Wells. My name is Christina de Poitiers. I'm the coordinator of the Amplifi education programme. I'm a B leader and I'm also policy lead at Root, who will be speaking today. Tracy, the director of Root, will be speaking today for us. And I'll be your host for today's webinar, which is on the topic of circularity. And before we proceed, I'd love to invite Pete, if he's here, to just introduce us to Amplifi and let us know a little bit more about that. But I think we're just waiting for Pete. While we wait for Pete, I will just tell you a little bit more about the webinar today. So today's topic is on the circular economy and how you can start to consider this subject as part of your sustainability strategy for your business. And I'm really, really excited to have Tracy Sutton here today from Root. She's the director of the Trusted Advisory for Circular Economy and Packaging. And Tracy has a degree in sustainable systems thinking. She's got 25 years of experience working with brands, manufacturers and suppliers in industry bodies. And she's developed Root's Design for Life methodology, which she applies to products, services and businesses. And today she's going to be helping us understand a little bit more about what the circular economy is, how it relates to us for our businesses and lives, and also to get us thinking about how we could better understand how circular economy relates to various aspects of our lives beyond products and packaging, which is what we traditionally kind of consider. But in the meantime, I'll just tell you a little bit about Amplifi. Amplifi was started by Pete Kenyon, who is a partner at Cripps Law Firm, and Jenny Kitchen, his co-founder, who runs a brand and digital agency, both based in Tunbridge Wells. And they actually helped both of their businesses through the B Corp process. And while this was a really good start, they thought it wasn't enough. So they wanted to do more in the community. So together created Amplifi. And Amplifi's goal is to build a community for positive action on climate change and to help businesses to reduce their carbon footprint. And Amplifi is not for profit, and it's aimed at helping businesses to create more impact in their local community through 5 different approaches. Firstly, through learning, Amplifi provides playbooks, film screenings, educational content, carbon literacy training and webinars such as these. Amplifi helps to measure key areas such as reducing your emissions, and we have several platforms that are free or with significant discounts for Amplifi members. We also work to get people collaborating with sector-specific working groups, connecting similar businesses together to share best practices and ideas. And then with a view to getting these groups to take action through community projects, waste audits, and supporting with landlord negotiations. And finally, we want to share and amplify the message. So with our media partnerships, we help businesses to tell sustainability stories, build case studies and influence others. If you would like to know a little bit more about Amplifi, please go to the Amplifi website, which is amplifi.tw. And we also have a YouTube channel where we will be putting the information that we record here today, and you can also see our other webinars on there too. And we will send out a link to your to the conversation after this meeting. But before I hand over to Tracy, I'd just like to get a quick poll from the audience to get a sense check of where we all are on our understanding of circular economy. So I've got 2 questions for you, which I'd love you to answer when we pop them up on the screen. And the first one, if we could pop that up, is to ask you, how would you rate your current understanding of the circular economy on a scale of 1 to 5? And then the question 2 is, how would you how do you feel about the specific actions you can take to incorporate circular economy principles into your business activities? So if you wouldn't mind filling that in and submitting that, we'll get an idea of where everyone is. Okay, how are we doing with that poll? We got all of the answers up. Okay, so brilliant. Thank you everyone for answering those questions. So we've got quite a range actually. So we've got about 12% of people are brand new to the subject. And on the other end of the scale, we've got about 18% of experts, but the majority of us are kind of in the middle, wanting to learn a little bit more. And then in terms of specific actions, again, we've got a range. So some people saying, not at all, not sure about any of the actions, up to we have the same experts who are very confident in the actions they're going to take as well. So that's fantastic. And hopefully we'll ask this poll again at the end and see if we've shifted that knowledge and understanding and confidence a little bit further on the scales. So I'd like to now hand over to Tracy. Tracy, if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll start the presentation.
Super. And maybe Christina's kindly supported me in terms of being my technical assistant today, as I was hoping to be able to share my screen, but unfortunately technical glitches or user errors on my side have meant it's not possible. Would you mind popping up the first slide, Christina?
Absolutely. Here we go.
Amazing.
Tell me if that's working or not for you.
Yes. Perfect. And first of all, thanks for everyone for joining. It's really great to see the variety of experience that people have got today. And I think the key thing for me, after being in the industry, dare I say it, for about 25 years, is seeing the different levels of understanding of circular economy. So yeah, I'm the director and the founder of Root. I've got a background in sustainable design, packaging design, product design. I've worked in lots of different industries, in turn, including creative industries, medical device, and now I run Root. So at Root, if you can pop onto the next slide, Christina. So we're very much the trusted advisor for circular economy and packaging. And we develop impactful partnerships with businesses to help them set simple targets and reduce impact and risk. We deliver industry-leading support across a number of different areas, so advisory support, regulatory support, circular economy strategy or circular strategy, and also sustainability strategy and impact. And we've got unrivaled experience throughout the whole life cycle of products and businesses in terms of design and innovation through to manufacture, reuse and end of life. And as you can see, we're very fortunate to work with some amazing, fantastic brands in terms of on the right hand side. And then if you could just pop to the next slide, Christina. We've also done a lot of work with a number of different industry bodies through garden, so Beta do garden homewares. We've got Be Wastewise who do waste management, Kent Resource Partnership, who some of you may or may not know, and a number of other industry bodies in terms of really sort of collaborating organisations together. If we can go on to the next one. So the circular economy is a really interesting phrase. I'll give you some of those of you who are a little bit more geeky like me, a little bit more context. So circular economy emerged in roughly in the sort of 50s and 60s, 1950s and 60s, and it was very much the evolution and kind of emerged really of existing design approaches and economic models. Things like the blue economy, which you may or may not have heard of, regenerative design and cradle to cradle. There's also other concepts that you might have heard of, things like the sharing economy or collaborative consumption. And the crux really is that the circular economy is not everything. When we think about circular economy, it's really important to bear in mind that it is an approach and it's a really useful approach, but it's not. But it's one of it's one component of the very holistic approach that we need when we think about business. Ellen MacArthur Foundation did a really great job around sort of 2010 to drive the circular economy as a concept forward and engage businesses to act. And today it's used by local and regional governments to reduce impact, increase, or to start to build increased economic resilience. The UK as well, so in the end, some of the useful links, it's worth keeping an up-to-date or keeping on top of what DEFRA are doing. So they've just established a circular economy task force, and they're soon to be developing a circular economy strategy. So just sort of sharing here that at that governmental level, circular economy is becoming kind of more everyday language. We can pop on to the next one. So, and I'm going to just use the Ellen MacArthur Foundation definition. There's so many different definitions, and it's important for me that we kind of try and keep things simple and consistent. So, 3 different key components. So, products and materials kept in circulation through things like maintenance, reuse, refurbishment, remanufacture, recycling, and composting. The second part on the second slide. And also, interestingly, they've tweaked this more recently, and I think that is to kind of make sure that they are thinking more holistically. So, circular economy can tackle climate change and other global challenges, things like biodiversity loss, waste, and pollution. And there's this whole concept about decoupling economic activity or growth from the consumption or the use of finite resources. And then the final one. And then this final component in terms of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation definition, which is around, is based on 3 different design principles. So eliminating waste and pollution, circulating products and materials at their highest value, and regenerating nature. And then if we just, if you pop onto the final one, the key thing for me that, and it's really important why we've got, actually, if we can just go back to that other slide, actually, Christina. Thanks. Is that the thing that's missing from here is people and community. So generally what happens is when people think about the circular economy, they think about circulating things, so keeping things moving around, rather than actually what the impact is of those things on society and community. So hopefully throughout today's session, we'll be able to share some more examples of businesses and organizations that are integrating circular economy in more of a kind of a community-based way. So that's kind of one of the key messages, I think, for me definitely today, is circular economy is not about stuff. It's really about more of a holistic approach in terms of the impact on people and planet, that the use and how we sort of develop products, services, and systems to use those resources, and the impact on community. Right, we'll pop on to the what's in it for me. This is a really important one. So people sort of often, some of our clients say, circular economy sounds great, but what's the value to my business? Why should I start thinking about it? And these principles, I think, can be kind of global, but also quite local as well. So in terms of community or social rather, circular economy can create and is creating new businesses and jobs in repair, maintenance, upgrading, remanufacturing, reuse, recycling of material, and product life extension. So we're seeing some industries like the fossil fuel sector and having quite a difficult time because of the pressures related to climate change, but also regulation. So some of those sectors and jobs are at risk, or businesses are closing. And what's happening is some of that is now shifting more in a more positive way towards more circular businesses. It can also, as we'll talk a bit more about today, really enhance community, so drive more resilience within the community, and also, if it's delivered well, can help improve equality and equity. The environmental impact as well, just that final one. In terms of environmental impact, applying circular economy principles at a global level can reduce CO2 emissions by 40%. I remember I was looking at a local, one of the local authorities' carbon footprint, and one of the biggest contributors to their carbon footprint across the board, which is in their scope 3, was the collection and management of waste. It was something like nearly sort of 25% of the total impact of that local authority. So it's massive. So it's really, really tangible things there in terms of the efforts and energy going into collecting, cleaning, and recycling. Can drive economic growth. So hopefully the idea being that we reduce waste management costs, which we're already starting to see in some instances, and also increase productivity. So as I was mentioning, those less cost, but also less time in terms of cleaning up, and really drive that higher resilience, because if businesses that are not prepared for the impacts of climate change and are less circular in their approach have got higher regulatory risk. The flip side is that those businesses who integrate circular economy into their practices will be more resilient. And I love this quote from Yvonne Chouinard, who I think had taken it from somebody else, but this whole thing around reputational risk. So not only is being a more responsible circular business the right thing to do, but in terms of thinking about, as a business owner, what legacy you want to leave as a brand, but also individually. The question is, do you want to be part of the problem, or do you want to be part of the solution? And I would suspect that most of the people on this call today are already really keen to be part of the solution.
And can I chip in there with a question, please?
Please do, yeah.
I think quite often with circular economy, kind of people think, oh, I'm a product business, I make things. Will I have to stop making things if I want to think about being circular? And is that going to affect how my business can grow and be profitable in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we'll talk a little bit about it in a second, but there's the different aspects of circular economy. One of the cruxes of this really is around how we operate our businesses, and we can make incremental shifts in terms of the way that we do things and deliver things and manufacture things. And depending on the size and the type of the business, it's also possible to take certain products and then pilot a new way of manufacturing something on that one product, as opposed to kind of applying it to the whole business, which can feel a little bit overwhelming. Also, you might have heard the phrase sort of shifting from a linear business to a circular business. Sounds like quite a big thing, and we all know, people who've got anyone who's got their own business knows how hard it can be to run a business. So the whole idea of changing that business model is often too much for some people to it's just too big a thing to consider. So I think the crux for me really is around thinking of incremental things that we can do within our own businesses to do things a little bit more differently. And hopefully some of the steps how we'll break down different components of the circular economy will help give people some of those stepping stones.
Great, thank you. I'll move on, shall I?
Yes, please. And the famous question, the cost of doing nothing. Often quite a difficult thing to put a cost to, but the reality is today, and we're seeing this with small and large businesses, it is becoming harder and harder to access raw materials. So climate change is causing rising temperatures. So this initially we called this risks, but these are real things that are happening today. We've got more extreme weather. It's making it harder to extract or get hold of raw materials. Supermarket shelves are quite regularly out of product. Virgin materials are becoming harder to source and scarcer. And some materials, things like coffee and chocolate, are becoming so many things. The cost of living and everything is just more expensive. And climate change is one of those factors, let alone things like politics and things like tariffs from over the sea. Regulation is becoming really... No one's ever really liked regulation, I think, let's be honest, apart from the regulators and maybe some people in law. Regulation's got a really great role, but when it comes to sustainability, it's becoming very difficult to manage because there's so much of it. At a European level, they are looking to simplify things, but the crux really is if you start to make your business more circular now, you will actually end up having less regulation applicable to you. So things like single use, plastics taxes, there's a whole load of regulations that are developed and designed to target those more impactful or extractive industries or impactful items. And then the final thing is that some businesses just literally won't be able to operate. We're seeing bakeries, I'm doing lots of work in the bakery sector or food sector, and businesses are literally closing every week or even every day because the cost of living, energy prices, other things related to wages and taxes, etc., becoming very difficult to manage. So there's this real sort of message around resilience and actually hopefully enabling people to have access to materials for longer by sourcing them more responsibly. Thanks, Christina. And I touched on it a second ago. I've seen so many companies kind of interpret circular economy in the wrong way, and sometimes it's favorable. So there's lots of businesses in the manufacturing and production sector who their business is still linear, so they might be extracting raw materials, turning it into plastic, and then selling plastic. So a great example is a business that says, "Oh yeah, we're circular," and they're taking recycled content, putting it into a single-use plastic bottle, and then suggesting that that plastic bottle is recyclable, but it's still a linear business. So it's a really great example of actually we can sometimes interpret the circular economy in quite a favourable way, and it's important for us to think quite. It's important to focus on that. If we can just pop onto the next slide. So this is the theory. So again, Ellen MacArthur Foundation, circular economy, one of the key principles. And this, as I said, this is an academic approach. It's theory, and it's one that has kind of taken hold quite successfully. The challenge with this diagrams, it shows these beautifully complete, connected arrows. We've got the technical and the biological cycles on the different sides. The thing is this is the theory, but then if we can go on to the next slide. In practice, it often doesn't happen. So there's such a big difference, which regulation is starting to focus on, the difference in terms of technical potential, it's the legal phrase, versus the in practice. So for example, we've got the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It's a bit of a mouthful to say, but just off the west coast of the USA, whereby we've got these kind of these gyres and lots of plastic sort of floating on the surface of the sea and throughout the whole ocean, to be fair. We've got the Atacama Desert, where there's lots of textiles that are coming. So some of these materials and products might be pitched or marketed as recyclable, or they might be classed as circular because they've got materials in that might have circular, might have recycled content in them. And then we've got e-waste. So and again, also what hopefully is going to come through in this slide is the impact in terms of from a societal and a community point of view. There are people in these e-waste dumps who are literally taking pieces of plastic, they're setting fire to them, and they're inhaling the flames, or not the flames, the fumes, to try and decide which plastic it is as to whether or not there's any value in it. And that's it's just horrific, and not anything that any brand or businesses or human being really wants to be associated with. And then the final one we've got there, some great stats from which is in practice. So in theory, there's lots of things that we can do with food waste. I know WRAP have been doing lots of really great work around it, but we're still wasting such a huge amount of food every single day, and there's really big climate impacts to that. So I love this statistic: 1 in 6 meals that are wasted in hospitality and catering. What if we could redistribute that? Some of that work is going on. So this is really different to the academic approach, which has got these nice, lovely circles. I haven't got the statistic in hand. There's a really great report called the Circularity Gap, but we're actually the theory of us as a society behaving in a circular way and taking these materials out and circulating them and making sure that they're recycled in practice. The theory is very different than the in practice. So really we kind of want to get across that note. It's also worth bearing in mind in terms of if you're talking about something being recycled or recyclable or reusable, the difference between that in theory and in practice is the same, because often there's quite a big mismatch. Thanks,
Christina. To add to that, Tracy, we're finding that more and more we think that something is going to a place that we've been told it's going to, and then we find out later that actually that's not the case, and it's so much more development aid money is going to solving these problems that we're inadvertently creating. So I think, for example, e-waste city is where it's quite common that our recycled phones that we will to send back or throw in the e-waste rubbish will end up there. So how it's being recycled is also really important to understand, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really important. I don't think we'll talk too much about supply chain today, but that the responsibility for businesses or suppliers who are producing and selling, saying, oh, here's our recyclable stuff, or kind of promoting it. There's so much greenwashing still going on, unfortunately. And actually, when we've done work with businesses and we've shown them that the distance that things have traveled in terms of going up or down the Panama Canal, going across roads, then go to a site and then be taken apart. All of those impacts are so big. And when we talk to clients about it, they're absolutely shocked. It's just one of of those things that until you really look into it, you don't really know. So whenever someone promotes something and says, oh, here's this material, it's circular, it's recyclable, and I say, okay, which bin does it go in? Because that's all generally citizens, members of the public, which bin am I supposed to put it in? And if it doesn't go in a household bin in your kitchen, then the likelihood of it being recycled is generally going to be quite low, unfortunately, no matter what people tell you. So yeah, always ask the question in terms of if somebody's selling you something about actually what their evidence is as to where and how it gets reused or repurposed or recyclable. Or if they're saying something circular, saying, well, what makes it circular specifically? Thanks, Christina. So how we tend to think about circular economy is a little bit different. It's a little bit of a build on that Ellen MacArthur slide. So we've got 3 different levels: materials, products, and business model. On the left-hand side, materials is the one that's kind of the gateway into sort of circular economy that most people start thinking about it. So it's about using regenerative materials, good materials, responsibly sourced materials, things like deforestation-free paper, cardboard, etc. And also making sure that, as I say, things are recycled in terms of recycled content and also recyclable in practice. The second part is products, so thinking about integrating those circular, all those good, all those regenerative, all those different materials, but making sure that those products actually at their when they're designed, are designed for repair, so that they can be designed to be upgraded, that they might be modular, that they're designed for disassembly, so that they can be separated easily or upgraded, and then right the way down the chain, making sure that at end of life they can actually be taken apart once they have been repaired or upgraded. Then the final one, so depending on where different people are in their journey on the call today, business model. So one of my gripes about the circular economy is it doesn't focus enough about using less. So we think about to sustain something is to keep something going, to make something circular is to just keep it going around. And actually, those things still use huge amounts of energy and can be really impactful. So one of our strapline is helping brands do more with less. So the crux really is we want to use less, because if we use less, we've got less regulatory risk, lower impact, less impact throughout the whole life cycle in terms of something being collected, cleaned, distributed, and then tried to be turned into something else. So using less is just a really lovely blanket approach that a lot of clients really like taking, and it drives a lot of the things like regulation. There's things around consumption reduction targets, and also if you use less, if you place less material on the market, you're going to be paying lower extended producer responsibility fees, which I won't go into today. You can always Google it afterwards, or we can send some links in the notes. But that's around businesses paying the cost of collection and recycling for their products. So if you place less on the market, you'll have lower fees. Making sure, as the final things in the business model, that those business models don't create waste or pollution or create less. We know it's not that easy just to completely create no waste or pollution. Making sure that it gives back to the community is a really important one, and also something which tends to not be thought about when we think of circular economy in general is the opportunity for those businesses or those practices to contribute to alleviating poverty, driving more justice and equity as well. So it's not just about the technical and the material parts of the business.
And are you talking with businesses about the concept of regenerative business?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that, because the language that we use will depend on where we are in the journey. And what I've found is that, so back in my day in the 90s, and I was at uni doing my dissertation, it's all eco-friendly, and then we moved on to the word sustainable. Then for other people, it's all about impact, so measuring impact and making sure that you can reduce and quantify that impact. And for those people who are more progressive in the conversation, it's about regenerative, and it's about making sure that we give back. And again, so the language we use is really important. So that's one of the challenges, as much as the circular economy is great in its principles, is that it doesn't really, although the definition talks about regenerative, it can be quite difficult for people to understand. But you're absolutely right. The whole concept of your business and the products and the services and the materials giving back, as well as the fact that we're actually using them, definitely. Right, so conscious of time, we're going to do some quick fire case studies for people. Hopefully Christina or Toby will give me a nudge if I take too much time. So we're going to fly through a few different sectors. Recycling bins. Recycling is great, but it's not really enough at the end of the day. So recycling is really good for linear businesses, really. We can put bins in place, whether it's around beauty packaging, trainers, but it also sort of alleviates some of that guilt. It's like, oh, I'll just chuck my trainers in that bin and I'll get another pair. The other challenges, I say that often some of these things, maybe less so with hangers, but some of these collection bins are for things that are really hard to recycle. So just the commercials and the recycling in practice is not that straightforward. So for those people new who might be working in retail and thinking, what can I do? The minimum is making sure that we've got recycling bins to try and identify what those high volume bits of waste are. I won't go through all the different points. We'll include these for people to share at the end, but making sure that businesses throughout retail are recycling whatever they can is a baseline, I would say. So elevating that a little bit more, so looking at what other businesses are doing to integrate repair and also buyback. Lots of great work that people like IKEA have been doing around the circular economy. Lots more businesses are doing repairs. It started to be quite a big thing in the outdoor sector, and it's very much flowing more so through dare I say it, fast fashion, but definitely something in terms of really understanding if there's a demand for it. You've got to make sure that there's demand, considering having a pilot, making sure that staff have got skills. So that's that thing around sort of upskilling staff and creating new jobs, and absolutely looking at the commercials. And then some more developed ones on the fashion slide. Thanks, Christina. Fashion rental. People who are half my age are probably doing this every day. I know that people do. There's also things like Vinted, but yeah, there's so many different places whereby people can just rent something for a short period of time, whether it's for an event, for an overnight thing, or for something longer. Sometimes they can be a little bit more, it can be more expensive, but also depending on the use and how long you want to keep it for, and also in terms of kind of your own morals, this can work really well. So lots of, pretty big businesses, it's reasonably mainstream in terms of being able to hire and rent things. So that could be something that you can offer and think about for your business, depending on what sort of sector you're in. And we often find people working in blanket phrase there, but professional services, so people who are sort of sharing skills and expertise, more sort of B2B. There's lots of great things in terms of rather than owning equipment, you can lease them. So I've done that before with Apple myself. You can also buy refurbished, making sure that if you do own them, that you're getting them repaired. Currys, I didn't realise, but Currys have done, I know it for a little while now, but Currys have been repairing things for a really long time, and they're doing a really good job of it. So it's a lot more mainstream than we think about. And then when things, as they get to the end of their life, donating them and recycling them. And I County Council have been doing a lot of work to kind of try and create more awareness around recycling electricals. And there's also that concept when we think more so about community, is to, is there a park community or an organisation whereby I can donate my my electrical item, which actually works quite well, or maybe somebody else can fix it, as opposed to just going all the way down to recycling already. So always thinking about kind of that aspect of levelling up and equity into the donation and recycling.
And I'm sure you're going to tell us in a minute, Tracy, but beyond your IT equipment, are there other things that professional services can do, given that they're not creating physical products necessarily?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is in things like energy. I know that we've had some sort of questions in terms of sometimes it's not easy to make those decisions on energy supply. But yeah, maybe if we go on to a couple of the other slides in terms of other things that we can do. So there's to some extent, so the 1% for planet or donating to charity is good. It kind of externalizes things, I think, personally. But signing up to donate back to some sort of really good cause is a really good thing to do. But actually, if you're able as an organisation to embed volunteer days to support charities, community interest companies, or organisations, or social enterprises, that can be a really good thing to do. Sometimes it's the employee or the business that chooses those things. And you also make take things one step further and embed kind of giving back into your commitments as an organisation as well, depending on how big or how small you are. And then the next slide actually has got some other great ideas in terms of sort of pro bono consulting. So giving your time back. There will always be someone in the world that really needs your time and that will be able to get so much more value and impact from it. So options, some of you will probably have seen, whereby legal support's given free, so that essentially the idea is that someone will leave a gift in their will, but it's around sharing those services for organisations that really need the expertise. Recruitment support for charities, for example, where they need help to hire good people. PR and marketing expertise that can help raise awareness and increase donations for really good charities and good causes. And also things like management and leadership mentoring, stuff that many people would just do every day, is so useful for charities or organizations that might not have that business experience. And absolutely, you know, that final one in terms of financial management advice for helping those organizations manage their money better, absolutely critical. Right, let's see, I've got a few left. Okay, so as I mentioned, in hospitality, making sure that we recycle is really important. There's also new regulations that will be in place as of at the end of the month around making sure that every business that has got that collects different streams of waste, but making sure that you've got in-room recycling. So I don't know how many different places I've stayed in, but also Airbnbs where there isn't recycling when you stay somewhere. And there's just so much waste. So that statistic that if you've got recycling bins in the room, it can reduce hotel waste by 40%. And also, understandably, also reduce those waste management costs if they're actually managed properly. There's things like rebates that you can get as well from different places in terms of collecting and recycling materials. And that statistic around, unfortunately, it's from a European website, so it's in euros. But the Kimpton Hotel in London saves between 10 to 15 grand a year just on cardboard recycling alone. So there's some really, really good incentives there. And other things like recycling oil that you might be using for cooking as well. So yeah, baseline again for hospitality is recycling. And then leveling up, one more from that, we've done a lot of work with helping businesses remove or reduce what they call an SSU in European regulation terms, a single serve unit. So that could be a tea bag, it could be a coffee capsule. There's hotel minis are a really big problem, which is why they're being banned in many areas, or some different minis are being already banned in different European nations, and also at an EU level as well, because they're just so wasteful. And many of these small tiny items just won't be recycled because they fall through the meshes and the recycling trommels. So Marriott have looked to switch from single-use plastic bottles to refillables, and they think that they'll save around 500 million mini bottles, which is insane, preventing that waste from ending up in landfills. And I really wanted to flag this whole thing around replacing things with bamboo and biodegradable solutions, because bamboo and biodegradable solutions can't be recycled. You'll generally be paying more for them. Somebody will tell you that they're compostable or biodegradable, but actually the likelihood of them ever being collected or recycled is very, very small. So yeah, looking to reduce, remove single use and do things in terms of bulk. You can have really nice swish options like what Malt and Brown have done, or there's those kind of bulk sauce serves for restaurants or hospitality. The one on the bottom left is really important to flag because it's still a single-use plastic bottle. It's just popped into a holder, so it's not really refillable. So yeah, lots of different options. So looking to remove single use rather than just kind of make it recyclable. And this is where I think it starts to become really interesting in terms of the use of space. So often there is empty space that businesses and also charities, community interest companies or social enterprises could use. Organisations that have got really great space could offer reduced rates for funding events, or they could give the space away for free as part of their business targets. And also they could also offer their catering capacity, whether it's around or office space, as I mentioned, or venue space. So it's really thinking, what space have I got, and what could we do? What could somebody else really value or benefit from that space from? I love this. I recommend that everybody Google this afterwards. So I might not pronounce it right, but Tulu. So I think it was MIT grad that came up with the business. And what they do is they have an on-site area whereby they create on-demand resident services. So this is less about kind of the more traditional repair cafes or something. It's really tech-driven. So working with um, not construction companies, for housing organisations, so that they can give their residents quick access to a whole number of different things, but reduce their overall impact. So really, it will also help with that community aspect as well. I won't spend too long on that one, as I know we're just got a few more to whiz through. Too Good to Go. So there's this one, and then there's the next slide as well. So if we go on to the next slide, so there's Too Good to Go, and then there's Olio, two really great organisations doing fantastic things to reduce not just food waste, which is the Too Good to Go, but Olio now, who started off in food waste, offer the opportunity for people to donate a whole bunch of different things in terms of household items. So they've taken what they built with the food redistribution, and they've built on top of that. It's got really strong social proof. It's got community support. So really looking to kind of just use, you know, pretty simple tech to create a really great platform for people to better donate and give things back, either as an individual at a corporate level. See how quickly I can speak. Right. This is really important. So there's lots of really fantastic organisations that are working so hard and who are so grateful for anything that you can donate and share with them. So a lot of these organisations tend to have quite similar names. My local one's is in Medway, but they really aim to reduce reduce homelessness, reduce the financial hardship that a lot of people are struggling with, food poverty, and if you're able to donate food, donate things that can go into one of their charity shops, if you can volunteer in a cafe, so this is time, and donate things that some people just don't have access to, it's really important. So really looking to, you know, circular economy is not just recycling stuff, it's really about thinking about kind of giving back to the community. Wales doing lots of great things in terms of repair. You can save money as well. It's really great. We can see some statistics there. They've got lots of different repair cafes across the country doing lots of things. Many people are quite used to the whole concept of a repair cafe now, so maybe we go on to some of the other options that might be help us go a bit further. There's a library of things. Ethical Consumer have got this fantastic map, and you can also have like a call to action to request for a library of things to be brought to your local area. And then on the next slide, a library of things, essentially you can hire a whole load of different things from there. So things around going out, camping, if you're going to a festival, which I know festival tents are an absolute bugbear for some people. Lots of different things that we can borrow just for a short period of time rather than own stuff. There's a Sydney example. For them, generally, it's for lower middle income people who might not have the space or the money to own all these things. And they've only had one thing stolen since 2021, which I think is a really big win. There's lots of different places where these exist, and I think we definitely need more in different parts of the country. Kent being one of them. This was great. So Peerby is really interesting because not only can you look to borrow things, but you can often kind of register to lend things as well. So that whole concept of whereby if you've got a space and you want to lend it to somebody or offer it to somebody. So it's really sort of thinking in a circular way about not just giving back stuff that you just don't need anymore, but looking to offer things that you can lend to people. Again, all these things will be included in the notes afterwards. So kind of just on time. Where to get started, really important, because lots of the whole thing around circular economy, sometimes it feels intangible, too fluffy and strategic, and people are like, what am I actually supposed to do? So a couple of key things here, which I will briefly whiz through. So carry out a circular audit, understand what things within your business and your team, what expertise do you have, what ideas, and what space or time, what can you offer to give back to help the community if we're looking to sort of level up in terms of looking to do things like alleviate or reduce poverty. Understanding really what the robust revenue streams are, you know, no things work unless they're financially viable. So really making sure that any initiative that you want to develop or build starts with the financials. It's got to be solid from that point of view. Collaboration's a little bit cliche, we hear it a lot of the time, but really looking, who's sat next to you, what organisation is down the street from you, who's really passionate, who could support you, share the journey, share costs, and what can you actually do rather than actually try and compete with somebody if you're both trying to have a really positive impact. How can you join forces to reduce it in that way? And then this is often the missing piece, creating goals and measuring things. So I won't go through all of those things, but making sure that we've got some clear goals around, using less, giving back to society, and a bunch of other things which we don't quite have the time to go into today. And some of a whole load of amazing resources, of which hopefully we've covered more of them off in the case studies as well. So I won't read those off, and then I shall hand back to Christina.
Thank you, Tracy. I think that slide where you kind of talk about what you can do is really, really important. And I think that's quite often the question that comes up is, okay, so circularity, like concept's quite big and it's beyond me, it's beyond my small business. What can I do? How I don't have much influence over my suppliers. How do I start to make a difference, I suppose, is the question. And those steps are really interesting and useful. I'm going to have a look at the questions. If there's any questions from anyone, please pop them in. We've got some some comments already, and I'll just end my presentation so that we can actually see everybody. Just some comments, and actually we were talking about Charlie's Angels Kitchen, actually, that's based in Tunbridge Wells, which is a really fantastic organisation for those of you that are in the area, which takes food waste and provides actually free meals for people who need them, and then for those who can pay, they pay what they think they're able to, which is a really lovely way of kind of adding that circularity into the process. And then we've also got another comment from Alex about managing to reduce glass recycling over the last 18 months by around 75% by using bottle return schemes. And that's actually going to become more and more prevalent with the new regulations that are coming in, not only in the UK, globally, actually, but yeah, there's quite a big movement towards various schemes, bottle return schemes or producer responsibilities you mentioned. So what do you see is going to be the main thing that businesses need to start considering soon that maybe they're not aware of at the moment?
Oh, you mean in terms of circular economy as a whole?
Well, yeah, maybe the first steps.
I mean, I think one of the key things that more businesses will start to become aware of is just regulation. Smaller and smaller businesses are being captured, whether it's around carbon reporting, the basics of recycling, taxes. So I think that whole making sure that you're really aware of what you're spending your money on and the impacts of those different things is really important, because then you can understand, well, actually, do I need that, and is there a better way that I can manage it? That stat around switching to bottle returns is fantastic. We need more of those really great case studies to share with people, because people need confidence. Otherwise people kind of think yeah, something doesn't quite apply to them. So yeah, I would say that regulation is probably the biggest yeah, one of the biggest threats, unfortunately.
I've got a question from Sarah. She's asking about charity clients generating income from donated rag clothing. And she's asking, are there any items that aren't sellable in charity shops, but they can still receive an income from global reuse markets? Yeah, so I know that actually Amplifi shared an organisation on the Instagram group this week about an organisation in Tunbridge Wells that's taking higher end charity clothes that can be resold for people or reused. But yeah, rags are they fall through the net, right?
Yeah, they do, and it's that thing, isn't it? It's when we don't, if the business model actually looks to hire or lease the item, then you don't end up with all these kind of lower and lower quality things that need to be sort of collected, and someone trying to make it's a bit like flexible plastic. We're trying to make it commercially viable to recycle it, and it's not that easy to recycle. So or it's just not commercially viable to recycle very well, I don't think. Yeah, I'm not a textile expert as such in terms of that kind of thing, but I'm sure that yeah, someone within the Amplify community will be.
Mm. And yeah, it's interesting because quality is quite an important element of this, right? You know, if you have better quality things, they'll last longer, they're more repairable, they don't end up being thrown away so quickly. So really important consideration for anything that you're purchasing or selling, I suppose. Obviously, there's a cost associated with that, so it's about balancing that within the kind of remit of your business.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when we've done work with clients on reuse or refill, really finding ways to work collaboratively with businesses that have got similar items that might be the same size or the same shape. It really depends on what sector you're in, because actually your profit model generally is based on scale. And so if you're only looking to sell, you know, one for life or one for a season or whatever the goal might be, you need to counteract that. We know that the commercials need to be built on that in a very, very different way. So I think that's really important for people. So that's why that whole collaboration thing, you know, who can you work with in a non-competitive way in your industry, who might just be down the road, who's actually got exactly the same problem and who's also small and who's also lacking resource and time and money. There's also quite a lot of different organisations that can redirect you to different funding pots as well. So whether that's at a local or a regional or local or a national level, there are quite a few different pots of funding available. I haven't got them at my fingertips, but that's definitely something that I think people need more access to if they're going to be switching something or doing something that commercially they might feel uncomfortable about.
And that's interesting because some of the examples you presented are more aimed at your general consumer. So Olio is a public platform, but that doesn't mean that it can't be used for business, or businesses could, you know, develop or adopt the same ethos within a community environment, and just kind of starting to get that head around the competition element of business is important to maintain, but that doesn't mean at the expense of collaboration or working together.
Definitely, and there's always more stuff going on. It's one of those things that when you actually stick your neck out and say to someone, "Actually, I'm finding this really difficult," you can guarantee that, you know, if you're in some kind of circle in a similar industry, somebody else is thinking, "Oh, sir, exactly the same. I'm really, really pleased that you said that." And so just being more transparent. It's okay not to know exactly what you're doing. It's okay not to get it right first time. We've got to take risks and we've got to do things that are uncomfortable. And the sooner we can identify the things that we need, whether it's around resource, whether it's around skills, whether it's around finance, the sooner we'll be able to get things off the ground, or to take existing programs that are already running and make them stronger and help them scale.
And you talk about that a lot, actually, which is about starting to kind of put together those disparate things that are happening, and we don't need to keep creating new ideas and doing new things, that they are probably already happening. It's just bringing those together and making that money work harder for itself, and getting people working, yeah, together in a community approach.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges with regulation is it forces us to look at forces us, so like there's simpler recycling regulation coming, as I mentioned, at the end of the month, and it's focusing our efforts and resource on recycling more rather than actually reusing more. So actually what we're lacking, so we've got lots of really passionate individuals, really passionate businesses, lots of people with lots of expertise and some pots of money. And actually, if we can better direct, if we've got a better or clearer mission at a local or a regional or even a national level, that is focusing everybody towards the same goals. There's a really fantastic book I recommend people read called The Mission Economy by an Italian economist called Mariana Mazzucato, might have pronounced the name wrong. But it's talking about how the putting a, I'm going to say person rather than man on the moon, but putting a person on the moon was a really, really big project that aligned private sector, public sector, businesses from all around the world to get somebody on the moon. And actually, that's the thing I think that we're missing. Like I say, we've got all this passion and this expertise. We've got loads of great things that are already going on. But actually, what we need is to try and scale it. And we do need to better direct finance to be able to do that properly.
It's really interesting. Yeah, get the metaphorical person on the moon to solve climate change. Would be fascinating.
Definitely.
There's a little bit of chat in the conversation going on in the chat around interest in building local business circularity. So like a B2B library of things within the Tunbridge Wells and Amplifi network, which is fantastic. And Alex is chipping in saying he's got a gazebo and PA system if anyone would like to borrow those.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just about having that forum to be able to tell people what you have, and then, you know, probably a lot of people thinking, oh, I really need that, but I just don't know where to look.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And so I think we're kind of coming to the end. I know Pete's here, and I'd love to ask him to just say a little bit in closing about Amplifi. But before we do that, if he's available, before we do that, I'd just like to pop up the poll again and see if we've changed in our view of circular economy, and if we're able to take a little bit more action. And if any of you have any ideas of things that you could do or would like to do, please pop them in the chat and share them with everyone. It's really helpful to kind of get ideas and like steal each other's ideas. Please do. Like that's what we need to do, and work together. So yeah, it's if you can answer that poll, see if we've got any evolution on that knowledge. And I know we have had a couple of questions pre-submitted, and also some in the chat that we haven't managed to get to. And if they're a little bit more specific, we can. Tracy, I'm sure you'd be happy to kind of contact people, let them know how you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if any, yeah, I think and I was just thinking when we're looking at the chat, hopefully there'll be a way that we can just extract some of these great things that are going on and just share them in like the meeting notes as such, whatever, however they go out. Yeah, if anyone's ever got any questions, just Google Tracy Sutton Root and you'll find me in different places, and just drop me a note.
So it was described before as a little bit of an exam test to see how you've done. And Tracy, we've improved the knowledge and as ability to take specific action quite significantly, which is lovely. So yeah, thank you for everybody's involvement in that. And I do hope you've got a lot of ideas coming out of this session. And please do feel free to get in touch with Tracy if you want to talk to her more about how Root can help. And also, if you're interested in either speaking for Amplifi on one of these webinars, or just hearing and being part of the community and understanding a little bit more about what we do, please do sign up for our newsletter, pop along to our website, and we'd be more than happy to chat to you about how you can get involved. We'll be sharing the recording on email after this with everyone who's signed up, and it will be going onto our YouTube channel as well. So for anyone who wasn't able to participate today, or you want to share it with somebody that you know, please do send that over. And I'd just like to hand over to Pete for a little closing remark. If you have anything you'd like to say, I'll just pin you into the chat, Pete.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you,
yes,
Pete.
Perfect. I'm so sorry. I had a bit of a technical problem at the beginning. I'm embarrassed to admit, but I am here now, and thank you very much, Christina and Tracy, for that. It was really, really interesting, really helpful to debunk some of what's going on with the circular economy. So thank you very much. I just wanted to get just a couple of words. I put something in the chat. There is a conversation we're having with Tracy about how we can try to understand opportunities around a more circular economy driven approach within the local business, within local businesses in particular. So we're looking at what that project looks like, and for me, we have a perfect opportunity to try stuff and to try and get a few projects off the ground, so that the idea making opportunities more visible and accessible for businesses to get involved in some of these kinds of approaches that Tracy alluded to today. So we're on it, and we're really excited to see what we can do, having got proper expertise with Tracy. The Library of Things is a really good example of that. You know, we all have stuff, whether as individuals or as businesses. We should try and figure out how to use that stuff more efficiently. So watch this space. No pressure on us now, Tracy. We'll see what we can do, and we'll keep you posted. Just want to generally say, Amplify, we're here. Have a look at our website if you're interested to get more involved. There are lots of different ways of getting involved at the moment. We're trying to meet people where they are. Everyone's at a different point, and that's absolutely fine and great, and it will always be the case. So we're going to continue to roll out webinars such as these. We've got literacy training that we're funding. We've now had, I can't actually remember the number of people, but we've now got approximately 40 people with carbon literacy certificates, having gone through the training, and it's really quite profound on the individuals going through it. So we're funding that for anyone who is interested. Do let us know. We're still pushing measurement. So if you're interested in carbon audits, there are free tools on the website, or there's a funded one that we will subsidise with Net Zero Now. We've got some great organisations through some of the sector groups, such as the Real Estate Advisory Panel. If you've got questions around how to use or do things differently with your building, it's a free service. We've got a number of businesses have now spoken to that panel and got some really good advice. And lastly, just a little nudge for anyone interested in looking at their audit, their waste, and carrying out an audit. Dave Carter's done a great job for, I think, five businesses now to look at what their waste is, and try and understand how they can be more efficient, and cost savings is a key driver in that. It's driving towards sustainability, but it's also looking at how commercially beneficial that can be. It's free of charge. Amplify funding it, and if you're interested in that conversation, please let us know. All the things we're doing, just to be very clear, there's Amplify are just going through a process to set ourselves up as a charity. That we're doing this, we're set up by us for us. We're not trying to make money out of anything. We're trying to share our collective brain power and resources more efficiently. So if any of that chimes, please do let us know. The website's there with hopefully sufficient information. Under the Get Involved page, there's a long list of things that you can do. It was great to see you all. Tracy, thanks again for your wisdom, much appreciated. And we'll keep people posted about what's coming up next for the webinars. I don't know, Christina, do you want to see the next one, or if we're not there yet, I won't put you on the spot.
No, absolutely. The next one that we have, our next webinar is actually taking place on the 7th of May, and it's going to be on the topic of sustainable pensions and how you can invest them more sustainably. And that's going to be with Chris Bush from Hall and Getsky, who does a lot of work in educating people and employees and businesses about how you can actually sustainably invest and actually make your investments grow as well. So
Great.
yeah, watch the space. We'll pop that in the chat in the email afterwards. I've also put the link to Amplify in the chat as well for those of you who'd like to go and have a browse.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, and thank you to you, Tracy, and much appreciated. And thank you to everyone for attending. We've got some lovely comments in the chat, and yeah, please stay in touch. And we will see you on the next webinar.